All right, hold on 1 second while I pull that up so I can follow it.
Tom, did you touch our computer?
You sat too close to it.
All right. Well, all right. Looks like it'd probably take me a little bit longer to pull up the presentation on my computer here. But for the sake of time, I will go through. So my name is Ayla Tucker. I am the Government Relations Representative for PG&E. So thank you for allowing me to come here today and talk about our Community Wildfire Safety Program. And I'm going to try one more time to pull it up so I know what I'm following.
Is it the same thing we have on our tablets?
Yes.
You want to use my tablet?
I was just going to say the same thing.
That might be helpful just so I know how to follow because there's a couple of... That would be perfect too. There's just a couple
Sure, Colin, I was going to be the hero. There you go.
Do you use yours working, Dave?
Yes, mine works fine, Robert. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So generally at PG&E, we like to start all of our meetings with a safety moment, just so it's at the forefront of our mind. So I'll just take that moment really quick, and hopefully everybody has identified their exit routes. And so just take a look around if you haven't already to make sure you have identified that. So at PG&E, our most important responsibility is the safety of our customers and our community. California continues to experience extreme weather, which has led to an increase in wildfire risk and a longer wildfire season, which I'm sure we're all very well aware of. Over the last decade, the frequency and severity of the wildfires in California have increased exponentially. And on the third slide is the wildfire fire threat map of California. This map was developed by the California Public Utilities Commission along with CAL FIRE and other agencies that provided input to this map. As you'll see here, 1/3 or nearly 1/3 of the electric lines that provide our customers with power are in that high fire threat district. This map helps inform us or plan for potential wildfire and also focus our prevention efforts. On the slide, there is a snapshot of the city of Corning. It's not in that high fire threat district, but as you can see, it's completely surrounded in 3 directions by that high fire threat district. There's also a snapshot, Tehama County specific, that shows how many customers are in that high fire threat district, our distribution lines, and all that good information. The map in its entirety can be accessed at cpuc.ca.gov/fire threat maps. I'll switch over to slide 4. And so really what I'm here to talk about today is our Community Wildfire Safety Program. Our Community Wildfire Safety Program is focused on reducing wildfire risk, improving situational awareness, and reducing impacts of PSPS events. So we're doing that in really 3 ways. And those are kind of, if you want to imagine, 3 buckets: reducing wildfire potential, improving situational awareness, and reducing impact of PSPS events. On the slide, it lists various aspects that we're doing to include system hardening, targeted device replacement, enhanced vegetation management, focusing on areas of highest risk, and then implementing various aspects like our Wildfire Safety Operations Center, installing weather stations, high-definition cameras, and then also satellite detection as well. All things that we hope to work with our community to reduce the wildfire risk across the PG&E territory. We all rely on electricity every day, and we want to work with our customers and our communities to make sure that our communities are as safe as possible. Switching over to slide 5. Here's a brief overview of what's new in 2021. For the sake of time, I won't go deeply into it, but there are some important things that I wanted to highlight that is relevant to our entire service territory, but gives a good idea of the actions that we're taking as a company to reduce wildfire risk. And that includes system hardening, so 180 circuit miles across our territory are identified for hardening, so that means stronger poles, covered wires, and then also tracking weather conditions. So we've installed 300, or we'll be planning to install 300 new weather stations across our territory. And then also 1,800 high-risk circuit miles of enhanced vegetation management and 135 high-definition cameras. To reduce PSP impacts, we are installing 275 additional distribution sectionalizing devices and transmission switches. By doing that, that allows us to parse out parts of the grid to help us reduce that impact and hopefully cut down on, the areas in which people are, impacted by PSPS, and to really be more pointed, hopefully, with our shutoffs if and when they are to happen. And then on the...
What is your target date for having these projects completed?
Most of the target date is by the end of 2021, so it's ongoing throughout the territory for the entire year of 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then we're also supporting customers in our communities, and so to do that, in relation to PSPS events, we're including customer notifications in 16 languages, and most notably, what I really like to highlight is customer alerts and address alerts to keep customers and community members informed. I'm going to go a little bit into that later, but essentially that means you don't have to be a customer to get PSPS alerts. For example, I have alerts on my home for my address, but I also have alerts at my grandparents' address so I can keep up with what's going on there. So you don't have to be an account holder to sign up for that. We're also working with additional partners, community-based organizations to support customers with access and functional needs. And there are some slides later on, if anybody is interested, in your packet that talks more specifically about those services and the services that are available to customers that may be impacted by PSPS. All right, go over to slide 6. And slide 6, everybody pretty much knows by now, I feel like, what a public safety power shutoff is. But just to give a quick process overview on the slide, you'll see that when high winds and dangerous conditions come, that can cause branches and debris to contact energized lines, that could damage our equipment and cause a wildfire. That's when we go to call a PSPS event to prevent fires, aka turning off the power, unfortunately. Once severe weather has passed, we inspect the system and repair any damage. So when we get to a point where the weather we've been given an all clear on our weather, we inspect every single line that has been affected by that high fire. So we do that on ground, we do that by helicopter, and we make sure that any damage that has been caused, usually after we've turned off power due to a PSPS event, there is damage that occurs, and so then we have to work to repair that damage before we can safely turn on power. So you'll see that last part is once any inspections and repairs are completed, that's when we're able to restore power. It's important to note that, this is real-time ground observations that we're using. Sorry, I skipped myself. My apologies. So, because electricity can travel several miles from generation source to get to the home or business, a customer may be affected by a PSPS event, even if they're several miles away from the location. Meaning, if our transmission lines are affected several miles away, but maybe a neighborhood isn't in a high fire threat district, but up the stream, that infrastructure is in danger, then that's why sometimes people get into a situation where we have to, they're affected by the PSPS. So it's important to keep in mind, because I think a lot of times it's not as clear. You know, people are like, well, there's not really a fire threat in my neighborhood. Why is my power getting turned off? And that's why it's, when you look at the broader infrastructure and know that sometimes those transmission lines that serve a community or serve customers, it's those transmission lines that can actually be affected and lead to that event in which we have to turn off the power. So just something to keep in mind. I'll switch over to slide 7. And what are some events that could lead to a PSPS event? So low humidity levels, generally below 30% or below, that high forecasted winds, potentially a red flag warning, condition of dry material on the ground and vegetation near lines. Something that sorry about that. Are real ground observations that help us to determine whether or not a PSPS event needs to occur. Occurs in our Wildfire Safety Operations Center, as well as our crews across the service territory. When a potential PSPS event occurs, every situation is different. The size and length of the PSPS event is going to differ and be driven by weather, that local information that we're gathering, and most important, our commitment to keeping customers safe. I'll go over to slide 8. So tree overstrike exposure and potential to PSPS decision making. So for the safety of our customers and communities, that's our most important responsibility. And after each PSPS event, we review weather conditions and associated damages that we've experienced to our system, and then incorporate lessons learned so that we can evolve and improve our PSPS program. Again, we're dedicated to continuous improvement and getting better and better. PSPS is obviously a last-ditch situation. There's definitely downsides to it. We recognize that. But we want to make sure that we are continuously improving to keep our communities safe and have it be as non-impactful as possible. After last year's wildfire season and the drier than average winter and spring that we're currently experiencing, we developed additional criteria for PSPS events to keep our customers and communities safe. More than 90 of our 5.4 million customers do not live in an area that's impacted by PSPS events, and they're going to be less likely to be impacted by this additional criteria. And for those that are looking at their slides, you can kind of see an outline of what that criteria shows, and you'll see that kind of fall zone of a tree, and that's something that we're incorporating to be a factor potentially in the PSPS events and the determination of that. So compared to last year, under similar weather conditions, customers who live in areas with the highest wildfire risk may experience more frequent PSPS events. There are ongoing conversations with the court and the California Public Utilities Commission regarding the additional criteria, and that conversation is ongoing, and we're looking right now at how that may impact our customers and communities, but we do plan on sharing that information as soon as it is readily available. Besides the additional criteria, again, like I mentioned before, we're working continuously to improve the program and to try to make it as less impactful as possible. If those impacts do occur, then hopefully the various programs that we've implemented, like our community resource centers, can lessen that impact, hopefully. So regardless of that court's outcome or the CPUC determinations, we're going to work around the clock to improve our systems, to improve PSPS events, and alleviate that impact as much as possible. On slide 9, For time's sake, I won't go too much into it. It gives a general overview of how customers are going to be notified. The one thing that I will highlight is that 2 days in advance, we give customers notification, and it's that kind of watch posturing. The day before, we again remind customers or notify them, and we're in that same watch posturing. And then we'll give a warning just before, then during, and then once power is restored. So hopefully we are in constant communication with customers at all times, and that includes advanced outreach to our medical baseline customers who may have access or functional needs. And we're doing outreach to them in advance to make sure that their health and safety is taken into consideration, and we're supporting them through that event. You'll see on the slide the address alerts. I talked a little bit about that before, but just a reminder, you can get notified for yourself or family members or your work or business or a daycare or a loved one. So that's pg&e.com/address alerts, and I think it's a really useful tool, especially for those who are maybe spread across the county and you have, vulnerable loved ones or family friends that you want to make sure are taken care of. That's a great resource to have. I'll switch over to slide 10, and for time's sake, I won't go too much into that. A lot of it talks about the increases to our customer support programs and what's different between 2020 and 2021. And a lot of that I've talked about before, and there's more specific information at the back of this presentation that goes in more detail for you guys to review, to share with constituents that may be impacted. And the reason that I include all this information is because really I want customers and community members to know that these resources are available and that they're there for them if they need that extra support. So that includes things like meal replacement, battery storage, especially those who maybe have CPAP machines, something like that. There are resources out there, and that's just something I wanted to make sure is highlighted. People on wells, there's rebates and programs for them as well. So more information and tools to prepare. Our pge.com/wildfire safety website is really helpful. And I know it's kind of like beating a dead horse, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that these resources are out there and for customers to access so that they can be as prepared as possible when adverse weather conditions occur, or even just other emergencies, wildfires occur, something like that, home fires occur. We have a safetyactioncenter.pge.com website that has a whole bunch of information, and there's also a kidsemergencysafety.com where there's interactive tools and activities to help children prepare for emergencies, and that's probably extra helpful in a environment where maybe a lot of people are still doing homeschool or distance learning. So just some tools to prepare. Just a whole bunch of information I included. There's probably about 5 or more slides at the back of the presentation. Please feel free to reach out with me if you have any questions. But other than that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have now.
Robert, I do want to announce that this whole presentation is available on our website in the council packet. So,
and there's contact information in that packet if someone has specific information about themselves or questions about their service. I will also highlight, it's not related to PSPS directly, but nonetheless, I think it's important. The financial assistance and support programs that we have, there's a slide on there, but these support programs that we implemented in March 2021 are set to expire on June 30th of this year. And so these are related to the pandemic. And so there are resources available to customers if they feel that when these protections end that they'll be adversely affected, to include pauses on service for disconnections, waiving security deposits for small commercial customers, a medical baseline program, recertification, And so even though it's not related to the presentation tonight, I included it in here because I want to make sure that the word is out to customers that those protections are going to end, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to work with customers, that we're not going to offer them additional programs to make sure that their power is not shut off. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much. Has anybody got any questions or comments?
Do you anticipate more PSPS events? Because Corning's not a high fire risk area, so are you anticipating more PSPS events in non-high risk areas than perhaps we experienced last summer? Last summer we didn't experience any.
Yeah, I think at this point there is not an expectation that non-high fire threat district areas are going to be impacted. I think the idea is that the increased criteria is going to mostly affect those in the high fire threat districts. But, those conversations are ongoing, but I do not anticipate increased events for the city of Corning at this point.
It's good to hear. All right, if there's nothing else, thank you very much, Ayla.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to presentation, City of Corning 2020 Police Department presentation by Police Chief Jeremiah Fierce.
Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I apologize for my tardiness and my attire, but as the older we get, we got to take care of ourselves. And I just spent 3 hours in the eye doctor, in which my wife had to drive to Chico to bring me back, so she's not very happy. We got a slideshow here that's going to be narrated by the wonderful Sergeant Patty Strowing, as I can't read in the fine print.
You just were 3 hours with the eye doctor.
Couldn't see myself coming to work.
You getting the lights?
So that was an intro done by one of the drones that the city approved last year. That's our nighttime drone. It's flown by one of our now 3 pilots. The other one is left, Sergeant Anderson is left for leader pastors. You just go right into the slides. Highlight some of it's going to be small print. You don't have to read it verbatim, but the first section is going to be on dispatch. And I just want to highlight Kylie. State of California regulates a certain amount of call time before 911 is answered. And I think we were at that. We're mandated to be at 95%.
Yeah, mandated at 95% of all 911 calls be answered within 15 seconds. Over the last 3 years, dispatch has answered 97% of all incoming 911 calls in under 10 seconds.
So that's highlighted. Yeah, and the bold print down there.
Yeah, over 99% are answered in under 15 seconds, far exceeding state requirements. And then the last line, so our recent Department of Justice audit was conducted and showed we were 100% compliant with all DOJ CLETS mandates and regulations.
DOJ and CLETS is Department of Justice, constantly under scrutiny as far as the validity of reports that we're providing from the officers out on the streets to record retention to a gamut of other things the state regulates us to have on file. For those of you that like charts, Ms. Christina Miller, we put these in there for you. So the light blue is projected on what it'll be at the end of this year. We're only 4 months into this year. You will notice a trend throughout most of these slides. The 2020 year is considerably lower. The pandemic had an effect on everything, as we know. So we're looking at an additional, is that 1,500?
Yeah, so this is, we got the projected one you can see for 2021. I think we got 500 as of now, but we're projected to have possibly 1,500 more, which is going to just show us a slight increase every year as we continue.
And these are just 911 calls. Good.
Okay, got dispatch and records. So some things for dispatch and records. We got text and 911 installed. Some things have been getting done up there. Our post-mandated training, state of California has a lot of requirements for peace officers and for just police departments in general. It's tough to keep up on those ongoing trainings, but we're getting there. Dispatch recently attended a 2-week intensive 911 dispatch supervisor academy. Some other courses they've taken are on sovereign citizens, dispatch's role in mass casualty incidents. They've attended some training on that. Unfortunately, this is becoming more of a normal thing these days with mass casualties. It's, we're not just in that little bubble anymore where it's not going to hit us, because it has hit us. If you can go over the last 3-4 years, we had the Rancho de Hema thing. Most recently, we had the Walmart distribution center thing that I went to. I mean, these are things that I never would have imagined going to when I started. I knew it was always a possibility, but it really hits home when you hear that come on the radio, and then you almost second guess yourself, like, did they just say that? And yeah, they just said that, and it's just chaos. So good stuff for them to have is training, unfortunately. Assessing suicidal callers. That's a good one. That's something we deal with quite often, especially with the pandemic. I feel like there has been an increase in mental health issues and suicide specifically. We got NBARS and CBARS, what that acronym stands for.
I don't offhand, but for layman's terms, in 2022, the state is going to regulate that our little county, our little police department fills out a 60 questionnaire on every contact we make.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a presumption of race, nationality, sexual. We have to give a presumption of what this is. We can't ask. So unfortunately, we're going to have to go to records. It's going to cost more time in records for each one of these contacts we start making here in 2022.
Yeah, and the system we currently have, which is RIMS, has a lot of information you can put into it, and it has all kinds of cool stuff you can do with it, but this is one of those things where they're now adding, I just went to an update that we're going to be doing that kind of incorporates this kind of stuff here, and it's just very extensive on data entry. The Department of Justice, the FBI, they want their data, but what it really means for us is it's just going to take us a lot longer to do some pretty simple things we're streamlined right now. It's just going to take that much longer to do. Daily training bulletins. We have this program, Lexipol, cool program that they created, and it kind of keeps us up to date with the ever-changing laws, because things are always changing with case law, policies and police procedure in general. I mean, one minute you can do one thing, and then they'll have a case that will go through. They'll make a decision on it, and now the way we've been policing changes, and we have to do things differently. So this kind of keeps us up to date on our procedure and staying within the law.
Lexipol is actually written by a bunch of attorneys that we adopted here years ago, so it keeps us in compliance, so we don't have to contact our city attorney and bother him. We can kind of govern ourselves unless it gets in the weeds and we need to contact Colin.
And lastly, DOJ mandated flex training and testing.
No. We can expedite through some of this other stuff too. No, this is business calls. So the difference between 911 calls and business calls, you can see the projected just business calls coming in is 15,000 projected more calls this year in comparison to 2020 when it was, I can't read that.
We got 12,500 in 2020.
So we're probably going to be another 6,000 more calls possibly that we're going to get this year. And like I say, we're only 4 months into this year. Again, those are projections. So, basically, this is what it is to, all the,
So we got this up for records. Upcoming trainings will include communications training, Officer Academy, the California Public Records Act, conflict management communication, and crisis communication skills. Things for the futures, record purge, activity levels with increase as COVID-19 restrictions end, and we will continue to enthusiastically serve our community.
so this is kind of governed by our supervisor, our dispatch record supervisor, Ashley Knight. This is kind of what she oversees here. The California Public Records Act is huge, because we do have to give away some information that me personally don't want to give away, but the state and citizens are required or have access to that. Sergeants, Tyler should be able to talk about this a little bit.
Let's see what we got on here. It's my first time reading it. So in addition to supervising and making command decisions, sergeants also, we do handle calls, believe it or not. We interface with other agencies, report to and represent the chief of police. We perform administrative tasks such as scheduling, employee evaluations, and concealed weapons permits for me. So you get one thing. Patrol officers, they're the ones that get their hands dirty. I got a guy actually, he just went 10-15, so he just arrested somebody. They gave him a bad name, probation violation, etc. Truck stops. Traffic stops and speed enforcement. Respond to all calls for service, conduct major crime investigations. We had homicide just last week, right? Small town Corning. Fight with combative subjects. Crime preventions, appear in court, that's really taken up. We got behind on court, or I should say everything got behind in court with COVID-19, and now we're kind of experiencing a rain of subpoenas, and we're looking like, when was this case? And it was like 2 years ago, so just one more thing to throw a wrench in the gears. Mediators, mentors, and counselors. So, not every call we go to is a crime. A lot of it's just people bickering about things, and there's civil issues, and sometimes there's life issues with kids, so that's kind of that last one there. But we do a lot of that. These are some incidents and traffic stops for patrol. We got the graph here. You see 2019. The blue, this OIA, represents an officer-initiated activity. That's any time that an officer makes a traffic stop. Maybe they go out on somebody. There's a suspicious vehicle somewhere. Those are all considered officer-initiated activities. The orange are going to be traffic stops. So as you can kind of see, 2020 went down because of the COVID-19, counted down a little bit, but you can see that 2021 is picking back up. And then the gray is going to be projected officer-initiated activity based on our existing numbers, and then the yellows are projected traffic stops.
And I would just add in there on the officer-initiated activities fairly low. That's because we restricted a lot of the officers' activity during the pandemic, so we wouldn't expose them to potential hazards of the pandemic, so we restricted that. And now that we're coming out of that, I've got to build up officers on getting back out on the road and doing things. So the projection is going to be, I think, higher than that, but coming out of the gate with what's going on is low.
Sure. And then these are some statistics for reports from patrol. 2019 took a total of 1,700 cases. 2020 we took considerably less, 1,300 cases. And just kind of add to the reports. We don't pull reports for everything. A lot of them are just going to be incidents. Incidents and reports are a little bit different. Reports would be something like, say, we place somebody under arrest. There's going to be a report generated for that. Somebody calls in a missing person. There's going to be a report for that. Total vehicle. There's all kinds of other things I'm probably missing. There's all kinds of things to report reports for. But 2020, you'll see the numbers are down there because we made a lot less arrests because we were out a lot less. We were trying to restrict ourselves and stay safe and whatnot. But as you can see in 2021, we're at 300. I think we're higher than that. I know we're higher than that. 397, and we're projected, to be about at 1191. Or that's additional 11. Additional, yeah. So we're projected to, just keep going up. And can we add to that?
Good.
And here's the arrest. Kind of same trend as all the other slides with the traffic and officer immediate activity. We see 2019 is pretty high. We dropped down to 2020, but we're kind of back coming up here in 2021.
Good.
Community service officer. So the CSO is a force multiplier for the department. His efforts free up patrol officers to handle more critical tasks. They do things such as animal control, that's Officer Ron Robbins, parking enforcement, code enforcement, abandoned vehicle abatement. He did quite a bit of that when that initially started, and he did a lot of that. Prisoner paperwork and transport, he helps us out with that often. Abandoned vehicles. Evidence is also responsible for evidence and property, which is the job itself. And crime suppression, because when he's out and about in his vehicle, he can easily call things in on the radio and get officer over there. He's just another set of eyes.
And I can say single-handedly, this is probably the most busiest person in our department. Absolutely. Some of his stats, obviously we don't use deep statistical data on a lot of his stuff, so we don't really have a projection at this point, but I guarantee it's probably going to be about the same, if not more, in 2019.
Get that, you can go back. Okay. Administration. You want that one, Chief?
So administration is obviously myself, Chief of Police. I'm do my budgeting and financial advanced planning. I'm constantly out on patrol because I can't lead from behind the desk, and it just doesn't sit well with me sitting on the desk. So I supervise all entities of the police department, dispatch, patrol, civilian staff, as well as CSOs. You can read that there. That's kind of something that Tom Watson made up for me, kind of the keep my own horn thing. But
so the Chief of Police is the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the city. He manages and supervises all department personnel and oversees all law enforcement operations. In Corning, he works full-time shifts during all hours, sometimes including weekends and holidays. The Chief reports to the city manager and splits his time between driving a desk as an administrator, also fills in for patrol when staffing shortages necessitated. He personally enforces the law, vehicle, and municipal codes in response to and investigates crimes that occur in the city. The Chief is a public figure and a leader of the community. As the captain of the ship, he is responsible for the success or failure of this team.
here I am in a hoodie and can't see.
Great example.
So this is something that our Administrative Secretary, Misha Vallado. She does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. She's like our department mom. She takes care of all that stuff. It does a lot, actually. Travel, training arrangements, ordering supplies, capital improvement, tracking police budgets, hiring processes, invoicing grants, outfitting pursuit vehicles, preparing correspondence, live scans, and processing mail.
I would say she is probably the second most busiest person in the police department.
And administration, we have our administrative services manager, Tom Watson. We also know Tom, the network administrator, technology and equipment maintenance and repair, phones, radios, computers, etc. Data security, access control, body camera system administrator, technology purchasing advisor, vehicle maintenance, registration and processing of sex offenders, property and evidence, supervises the CSO program, webpage team manager, vice president of the Powell Board of Directors, president, Henry County Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Authority, interface with the Henry County DOJ, Sunridge Systems, AT&T, and child safety seatbelt installation technician.
So obviously Tom wrote that because he went on. But no, he does do it.
He does.
So these are the capital improvements from last year. You just click on it, it'll say kind of what we've done, Carl, each one.
You want to go through it?
Just click one and it should be pop up red.
Oh, there you go.
So the purchase of 2 patrol vehicles. One of them was my vehicle. The other one, because of COVID, we're having a hard time still finding equipment. It can be something as simple as a blue LED light or the required red LED light. The other one is at the shop in Henry County Sheriff's Office approved, so it isn't ready to go yet. drone program is phenomenal. We have the 3 pilots now. We had our first successful apprehension last Thursday. I was telling the city manager about it. Unfortunately, it was an assist for the county, but in the greater good of everybody, it worked out well. One of our drone operators, Officer Curiel, was able to get the drone up in less than 2 minutes, fly over an orchard in which it was an interrupted burglary from a residence. Flew up into the orchard, flew over, saw 2 gentlemen running from the scene. One of them actually tried hiding in a horse round pen corral by the water bucket. We flew the drone down low enough to where you could actually see the bad guy. The bad guy saw the drone, looked at the drone, thought, oh man, and took off running again. So they ran together, they were able to follow him. The deputy ran right out as they popped out on the road. Both of them were taken into custody.
Nice.
We skipped the server upgrade migration. The speed plates fell in, as you know, at a lot less than what we budgeted for, what we asked for, and we ended up purchasing some rounds of training ammunition for our patrol rifles. The patrol rifles, they've been equipped and they've been out and they've been deployed on the street. This Sasine thing has worked greatly for us guys here. So what it does is like a cell phone dump. We can plug it in. It actually is based around our 290 or sex registrant because they have to offer up their phones. So when we go do these checks, we can plug their phones in and see what kind of stuff they got on their phones because phones are mini computers and having to use the things that are harmful. Good, okay. A couple more. So this is the face of the Corning Police Department now, with the exception of the gentleman that's in front of me, Sergeant Ian Anderson. He took a job up in Shasta County. But that's our department, my family, who I'm extremely proud of. Right now, we are working without our canine. Our canine handler, Keith Corey, was injured, had a significant injury to his knee, and was probably going to require surgery. So he's out for an extended period of time. I will be bringing back one gentleman that's depicted in their uniform from our major crimes unit. It's a multi-agency drug task force major crime unit out of the sheriff's office. He's just been promoted as a sergeant. He'll be coming back May 5th to the department because we're down a sergeant right now due to Sergeant Anderson leaving. All right, Travis.
Population from 2013 to 2021, the graph, as you can see, it's kind of had some ups and downs, but 2021 it shows we're definitely on the rise.
So this is a sight into projected population of Corning and where we're going with the police department, or my vision for our police department. As incidents rise, population grows. Okay.
Case investigations, you guys see the graph right there.
So we're currently investigating all of our own reports internally with patrol. I'll say it again, with patrol, not a designated detective to handle major investigations. So this is just a sneak peek at this year's capital improvement project that hit city manager's desk here a couple weeks ago.
So we got the pursuit vehicles, about 68 grand. The 70 grand. The rims, net motion upgrade.
We're probably going to scrap the mobile data for right now.
What's that now?
We're going to scrap the mobile data.
The mobile data, okay. So the mobile data is going to be doing off. So the network switch, $6,967.
And ultimately, here's my vision for staffing for the Corning Police Department. If you look at this, it can take me a while to explain it, but in gist, with jockeying folks around, it'll only be adding one more position to our department, and that will be an extra full-time CSO. An extra full-time CSO means we will have 7 days a week coverage of a community service officer. That's your animal control, that's your parking, that's your evidence tech that we got to turn people away on the weekends, or assist us with other varieties of incidences. If this is granted, the CSOs will more than likely be handling cold case calls, freeing up the officer's time a little bit. If you look in the gray area, that's my patrol. We will be operating with 3 sergeants currently on the fill-in sergeant on one side of the week. We have an officer in charge. He's equivalent to a sergeant, just doesn't have that title or the stripes. My goal is to work with a officer in charge or a sergeant and one patrol officer on day shift, and be able to have one sergeant and 2 patrol officers on night shift. Currently, because of staffing and injuries, we're working with 1 sergeant and 1 patrol officer on night shifts right now. So what that means is that one officer gets an arrest, he's got to go to the jail, we're down 45 minutes, and that's 1 guy in town. Moving over to investigations, ultimately through moving around, dropping positions, my personal belief is, even though we're a small town, we still have some major crime. As we found out last week, a detective is something I think very invaluable to the city. Major crimes unit, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with that, because we are pulling our Corning guy out of major crimes, which leaves nobody in major crimes. So that's left vacant as it is there. We will continue to have a school resource officer, and I know there was some talk last year about another officer for the schools, but that's something the city manager can work around funding for that. Dispatch, we'll continue to have the records dispatch supervisor and then the 4 dispatchers as well. I think that's the last slide. So there are hard copies of this because I took some out, added some slides. I believe they're right there. So we're more happy if you want to grab some to take some home and monitor. Any questions?
How much is your call volume on assist with the SO increased because of their cutback in staff?
We're probably handling at least 2 to 3 calls a day for them.
It depends on how short they are.
If not a multitude of assists.
Lots of assists.
Yeah, that puts more of a strain on your department. And
Yes. I mean, we're still in the scope of the city. If it's daytime, I get a little more lax with it because I have myself here who's ready for patrol. We have Officer Freitel who's at the school. So we still have people in town, but we are constantly assisting the South County units just because I think that's a good neighborly thing to have with the folks out in the county.
well, we'll stay working with you guys on a lot of calls and stuff. It's always good to have your guys there, and they're always very professional and very helpful in anything we encounter. I think Tom would back me up on that statement.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate that. I think over the last 5-6 years, there may have been some beef between Corning and Fire, and I really think we've mended that, and I get along with all the guys and vice versa. So I appreciate it.
And thank you for setting the bar so very high for his presentation.
Yeah.
You'll be all right.
We definitely appreciate everything you guys do for our community, and you will always have our support. And you guys have a thankless job these days, and you guys do a very good job of it. I appreciate it.
Much appreciated for you folks here in the audience coming to listen, and you folks are sitting up there making the decisions sometimes. In Indy, we are having an Oster Memorial on the 12th of next month, High Point Assembly, 7 p.m. So I'll have a pamphlet that I'll pass out on Friday notes at some point. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Be safe. I'll see you in a little bit.
Thanks, Sarge.
Thanks, guys.
Alrighty. We have no more presentations. Do we have any public comment or business from the floor?
Honorable Mayor and Council, this is just a follow-up from Mr. Leckley's question last time about the flagpole at the Vets Hall, which I know that's county property and everything else, but I went and looked at it, and it is in pretty bad disrepair. I'm not 100% sure it's even salvageable. The bottom where it actually pivots on, the piece that sits next to it is pretty rotted. It's checked quite a bit. They did have Tony Kelly said he would come paint it if we dropped it and put it down, but I don't know for sure that it'd get back up. I did a real quick research, and a 70-foot aluminum pole is $10,500, and so I'm assuming that a wooden pole is about, probably I'm guessing about $18,000. The only company I saw there was actually on the East Coast, I believe, Massachusetts, who made oars and masts for ships and all that kind of stuff. So just to follow up, and then Thursday morning, I guess a couple supervisors are going to be down and they're going to do a walkthrough of the whole building because there's some disrepair in the whole building. Yeah. So, anyway, just to follow up on Mr. Lickman's question.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything?
You gotta go through public hearings first, Tom, so you might as well sit back down.
Oh, do you have one?
Yeah, we do. You can stand up here and discuss if you like.
Just trying to save you, you're not as young as you used to be.
All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything on the consent agenda they would like pulled? If not, do I have a motion?
I move we accept consent agenda items 4 through 7.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous. We will move on, and no items removed. Public hearings and meetings. Public hearing, adopt resolution 04-27-2021-01, authorizing the recording of resolution 04-27-2021-01, and attached notice of lien for delinquent and uncollected water and or sewer fees in the amount of $1,172.14 on property located at 1186 Link Street, APN number 071-231-003-000.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. That title almost said it all. The only thing that I would expand is that this property is going to lien sale, tax sale, and I'm grateful for the duteous and diligent efforts of the city clerk in tracking these so that we have the opportunity to attach a lien should the council decide to do so. But this is for back water and sewer payments that have not been made to the city, that is due to the city.
All right, if there's no further discussion, I will open the public hearing. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Nobody coming forward? Public hearing is closed. And do I have a motion?
I move Mayor and Council adopt resolution 04-27-2021-01, and authorize the city clerk to record a tax lien in the amount of $1,172.14 for delinquent water and or sewer services on the property listed on attached Exhibit A.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous. We'll move on to the regular agenda. Authorize the fire chief to submit a rural fire capacity, RFC, program application with CAL FIRE and approve grant match funding in the amount of $2,495.
Good evening again, Honorable Mayor and Council. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. They did change the name the last 3 years. It's been called the, well, longer than that, but many years I've done it. It's been called the Volunteer Fire Assistance Grant, and now they changed it to the Rural Fire Capacity. I don't know why. Right? More state jobs or something. I don't know. So anyway, it's through CAL FIRE, and the total amount is $4,990, and this year, see the list there asks for pants, coats, helmets, shrouds, goggles, and gloves. So the 50% match would be $2,495. We replace this stuff each year. Some of it goes out of service, some of it gets worn out, some of it unfortunately gets lost, different things happen. So it's good to have each year. New wildland stuff we use in the city, and then of course also supporting CAL FIRE with our mutual aids also. Any questions?
Now you can never turn down free money. That's wildland gear. For those people that don't know, is the one part of our gear that does get damaged. I mean, you're out in fields, going over fences, going through bushes, trees. You never know what kind of area you're going to be in. So there is a need to replace, and we definitely could support this.
I'll move Mayor and Council authorize the fire chief to sign and submit a volunteer fire assistance grant application with CAL FIRE and approve 50% grant match funding from the safety items Fire Fund 001-6552-2300 in the amount of $2,495.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Items placed on the agenda from the floor, there are none. Communications, correspondence, and information? None. Reports from the council.
Oh, excuse me, yes there is. I'm going to jump in on you.
Easy.
May 22nd is the chamber installation dinner, so I do need each of the council to please get back to me on whether they plan to attend so that I can make the reservation.
Okay.
And there is a limit of 100 tickets only that they're allowing, so yes, please reply as soon as possible to Lisa.
Where is it going to?
I'll let you know. You want me to go now or you want me to wait?
Go ahead, Judy.
So the chamber installation dinner and masquerade is Saturday, May 22nd at 5:30 at the Veterans Hall. Tickets are $25 each and only 100 available this year. And we expect to see you there. And if you want to sponsor a table as a business, you're welcome to also. And West Coast is going to cater again, and it's going to be beef or chicken, choice of. And you'll let us know or let Lisa know what you want ahead of time.
All right. That it? Thank you. Karen?
Tomorrow, the Corning Senior Center, we're having a Denim Days, which is a drive-through to support people against sexual assault. We're going to have pictures on social media. Everyone who drives through and wears denim will get 5 tickets into a drawing. We have some really fun prizes. Miss Shelley donated some prizes, and we have a barbecue and some other fun things. It is between 11 and 1, and I'd like to have a lot of people come and drive through. And that's with Empower Tammy.
All right. Thank you. Shelley?
Team meeting, Park safety meeting. They have lots of masks and hand sanitizer still. They're getting more. So, and then, like I said, that's going to be
David?
No meetings. Karen, you guys, Senior Center, ever going to have another board meeting over there anytime soon? I haven't heard of
Whenever
any.
you're ready.
Better have one soon or I won't be ready.
We'll have one next month.
Nope.
Second Wednesday of the month. 10 o'clock.
There you go. All right. Well, I have nothing. So if there's nothing further,
Sorry, can I open public comment?
yes, we'll open public comment.
I just want to, as I go through the budget process, I just want to make sure that the council and the public is aware that I know we went through a series of water rate increases in the past few years. Because of our inability to turn off water, the city is not receiving as much revenue as we would anticipate, which we could be in a situation where we're out of compliance with our rate covenant. And so I'm closely monitoring that to ensure or determine whether, unfortunately, we will have to increase our rate to do so. And I'll provide a further update. But as we all know, we don't have the ability to shut off water right now. And if there is some potential, or there will be grant funding that will be made available at some point, that those that are impacted by COVID will be able to apply for to relieve their utility debt. So it's not just limited to water and sewer, but also include PG&E and internet debt. But they will have to actually apply for it, and it is not a simple one-pager. So within that, I'm hoping that we can recoup some of that, but within that, it is an ongoing worry that I'm holding right now, and I want to make sure that both the council and the public is aware. It's not on the agenda, so if you have a question, you can just call me.
I forgot what we asked. Okay, I remember, I'll write it down.
Yeah,
All right,
just email me.
If there's nothing else, I'm going to close public comment. Jerry?
Well, before we get on to this, Mayor and board members, I just want to thank Chief Tomlinson for his quick response to looking at the problems down there at Memorial Hall, and invite anyone that can to come down there Thursday morning, this Thursday, at 9 o'clock. We will have supervisors from the county down there, and along with their maintenance people, and I think the more that we can keep the ball rolling, the more up we're going to get something done down there. So I thank you again for all that you've done. Thank you, Chief.
Nothing else? We'll close public comment and meeting adjourned. Did you need to sign?
Yes.
Good, man. Cool.
Yeah, that has to be recorded. No, anyone.
There you go. All right, I'll get some dinner. David. What?
I'm going to come back to the right again. Okay, two people. Okay, the city will pay for you and the donations to the care for